Theo stared at his canvas, brush hovering midair like it had stage fright. The painting, a supposed masterpiece in progress, was starting to look like an emotional crisis smeared in oil paint, which, to be fair, was an accurate representation of his current state. He tried to focus, but his mind kept replaying Aiden's words from earlier that day. I met this photographer at the charity event, Lucas. Super talented, great energy, you'd like him. Theo doubted that very much. He stabbed his brush into a glob of blue paint, dragging it across the canvas with unnecessary aggression. It wasn't that Aiden wasn't allowed to meet new people, of course not. Aiden was friendly, outgoing, annoyingly charming. But the way he had said Lucas' name, like it meant something, had sent a sharp, irrational pang through Theo's chest. The door to his studio creaked open. Theo didn't need to turn around to know it was Aiden. The scent of overpriced protein powder and that stupidly citrusy cologne filled the air. Still working? Aiden asked, leaning against the doorframe like a living, breathing fitness ad. Theo didn't look up. No, I just like aggressively glaring at my canvas for fun. Aiden chuckled. Right. Anyway, a bunch of us are heading to the Bean later. You should come. The Bean, their usual cafe. The safe zone, the place where Theo could bask in Aiden's presence without competition. Theo sighed, setting down his brush. Fine. Great. Oh, and Lucas is coming too. Theo's eye twitched. Of course he was. The moment Theo walked into the Bean, he spotted him. Lucas. Sitting at their usual table, already deep in conversation with their friends, like he had always been part of the group. He was fine. Infuriatingly fine. Not obnoxiously handsome, but attractive in that. I take candid photos that make people look cooler than they actually are. Tousled hair, easy smile. The kind of guy who probably called coffee a ritual, instead of just caffeine addiction. Lucas noticed Theo and grinned. Hey, you must be Theo. Aiden's talked a lot about you. Theo forced a polite smile. Can't say the same. Aiden choked on his drink. Lucas just laughed. Theo sat down, arms crossed. This was going to be a long night. Aiden liked people. People liked Aiden. It was a simple, natural order of the universe. So when he met Lucas at the charity event, it didn't take long for them to click. Lucas had that easygoing, confident energy, sharp humor, quick wit. He was fun, and fun was Aiden's favorite kind of person. Now, sitting at the Bean, Aiden watched as Lucas and their friends chatted effortlessly. Everything was great, except Theo, who looked like he had been personally wronged by Lucas' existence. Can't say the same, Theo had muttered earlier when Lucas said Aiden talked about him. Aiden had nearly choked on his drink. He glanced at Theo now, arms crossed, brow furrowed, staring at Lucas like he was a stain on his favorite sweater. Aiden nudged him. Dude, what's your problem? Theo took an exaggerated sip of coffee. I'm just observing. Lucas grinned. Feels more like glaring. But okay. Theo's eye twitched. Aiden sighed. He loved Theo. He was his best friend after all, but sometimes, the guy was impossible. Anyway, Aiden said, turning to Lucas, tell them about your latest project. Lucas lit up. Oh, it's a photo series on movement, capturing raw physical energy. Dancers, athletes, that kind of thing. Aiden grinned. Man, that's sick. If you ever need a fitness model, I'm your guy. Lucas smirked. Noted. Theo made a noise. Aiden turned to him, confused. What? Theo plastered on a too casual smile. Nothing, just thinking about how photographers have the easiest job. Click a button, and suddenly it's art. Lucas chuckled. Oh, absolutely, just like how painters slap some colors together and boom, masterpiece. Theo's jaw clenched. Aiden swore he could see sparks flying between them, and not the fun, romantic kind. Lucas seemed amused. Theo seemed seconds from throwing his coffee. Aiden rubbed his temples. He had no idea what was happening, but he knew one thing. For sure, Theo was acting weird. And it was starting to stress him out. He just didn't know why. Lucas had a talent for reading people. It came with the job. Capturing raw emotions through a lens required a certain level of perception. And right now, Theo was practically radiating hostility. Lucas found it entertaining. He sipped his coffee, watching Theo across the table. Arms crossed, jaw tight, eyes full of unspoken insults. If Theo thought he was being subtle, he was very, very wrong. Aiden, of course, was oblivious, laughing about something their friend had said. He had that effortless charm, the kind that made people want to be around him. Lucas got it. Aiden was magnetic, attractive, a little dumb in the best way. But Theo was interesting. Hey, Theo. Lucas leaned in slightly, smiling. You an art guy? Theo gave him a flat look. No, I just accidentally became a professional painter. Lucas grinned. So that means you'll let me photograph you in your element. Theo blinked. What? An artist at work. Passionate, tortured, dramatically covered in paint. Lucas gestured vaguely. Would make a great series. Theo narrowed his eyes. Pass. Shame, Lucas mused. Could been iconic. Aiden chuckled, oblivious to the tension. Lucas' work is amazing, man. You'd look great in one of his shots. Theo's expression didn't change, but Lucas caught the slight tightening of his fingers around his cup. Oh, this was fun. Maybe I'll just have to settle for Aiden then, Lucas added casually. Theo's jaw twitched. Jackpot. Lucas had met plenty of people like Theo before. Territorial without admitting it, possessive without reason. But was it about Aiden? Or just Lucas himself? Either way, he was intrigued. Aiden clapped a hand on Lucas' shoulder. Dude, I'd be down. You tell me when. Lucas smirked. It's a date. Theo stood up so fast his chair nearly tipped over. I need air. Aiden frowned. You good? Peachy, Theo muttered. Walking away. Lucas watched him go, suppressing a grin. Let the game begin. Theo had officially hit his limit. It had been weeks of this, Lucas showing up, charming everyone, claiming space that used to belong to Theo. He was everywhere. At the cafe, at the gym, at Aiden's apartment, leaning too close, laughing too loud, existing. And Aiden, being his usual oblivious self, welcomed it. So now they were here, at a group outing Theo deeply regretted agreeing to. They had barely sat down before Lucas draped an arm over Aiden's shoulder, laughing at some joke. Theo wasn't even sure Aiden had noticed. Theo, however, noticed everything. Man, you're always touching him, Theo said, voice deceptively light. Lucas turned, unfazed. Jealous? Aiden, mid-sip of his drink, choked. Theo's jaw tightened, just making an observation. Lucas leaned in slightly, a knowing glint in his eye. You do that a lot, don't you? Aiden, oblivious, patted Theo's shoulder. Come on, man, don't be weird. Theo laughed. It wasn't a happy laugh. Right? I'm the weird one. Something in his voice must have landed because Lucas actually looked intrigued. What's your deal with me, anyway? Theo could feel every nerve in his body screaming, but he didn't back down. I don't like people who pretend to be something they're not. Lucas's smile sharpened. Interesting considering how good you are at pretending you don't care. The table went silent. Aiden shifted uncomfortably. Guys. No, this is fun, Lucas said, still watching Theo. Keep going. What else do you hate about me? Theo clenched his fists. I don't, Lucas smirked. Admit it. You don't just dislike me, you're scared of what I mean for you and Aiden. The words hit harder than Theo wanted them to. Aiden looked between them, confused. Wait. What does that? Theo stood abruptly. I need some air. He stormed off before Aiden could protest. Lucas watched him go, a thoughtful look on his face. Aiden sighed, rubbing his temples. Dude, why do you have to push him like that? Lucas leaned back, stretching. Because he won't admit what he really wants. Aiden frowned. Something about the way Lucas said it made his stomach twist. Aiden wasn't great at picking up on things. Subtlety wasn't his strong suit. But even he knew something was off. Theo had been avoiding him ever since that disastrous group outing. Every time Aiden texted, Theo answered in one-word responses. When Aiden showed up at his studio, Theo suddenly had deadlines, which was a lie, because Theo avoided deadlines like they were contagious. Aiden finally cornered him at his apartment, arms crossed. All right, what's your deal? Theo, who had been in the middle of aggressively stabbing a paintbrush into his palate, stiffened. No deal. Aiden rolled his eyes. Dude. You've been acting like I ran over your cat. Theo set his brush down with the kind of carefulness that meant he wanted to throw it. I don't have a cat. You get the point, Aiden said. Theo took a breath like he was preparing for something awful. I like you, Aiden blinked. Well, yeah, I like you too, idiot. No, not like that. Theo let out a nervous laugh, running a hand through his already messy hair. I like you romantically. Silence. Aiden's brain short-circuited. Wait. He held up a hand. Since when? Theo groaned. Oh my God, forever. Aiden flopped onto the couch, staring at the ceiling. This felt big. He wanted to say something helpful, something profound. Instead, what came out was, dude, this is terrible timing. Theo made a strangled noise. What? I mean, you should've told me before Lucas got all. Aiden waved a hand. Lucas. Theo threw his hands up. That's what I was trying to do. And then he just showed up with his stupid smile and his stupid confidence and his hair. Aiden blinked. You have a weird amount of feelings about his hair. Before Theo could respond, the studio door creaked open, and Lucas entered. Theo turned to him with a vicious glare. What's he doing here? Aiden had honestly forgotten about the invite, but what else was he supposed to do? Lucas and Theo were always going at each other's throat, and it was becoming too much for him. He wanted them to get along with each other. Lucas looked between them, raising an amused eyebrow. Awkward. Theo went red. Aiden sat up. How much did you hear? Lucas tilted his head. Enough. Theo looked like he wanted the earth to swallow him whole. Lucas, on the other hand, looked amused, but also hurt. Aiden's stomach twisted. Lucas's smirk didn't quite reach his eyes. Well, don't let me interrupt the love confession. And just like that he was gone. Theo groaned, burying his face in his hands. Kill me. After the studio debacle, Theo had sworn off social interactions. He spent the next week holed up in his apartment, painting furiously and ignoring his phone. Messages piled up, some from Aiden, some from gallery staff finalizing details, but Theo barely glanced at them. He wasn't in the mood to deal with people. Then the exhibition happened. It had seemed like a lucky break at first. An exclusive gallery looking for emerging artists, a chance to showcase his work to serious buyers. Theo had signed up impulsively, without telling anyone, not even Aiden. He wasn't sure why. Maybe part of him wanted to prove he could handle this on his own. What he hadn't known was who had organized it. Now standing in the middle of a sleek high-end gallery, Theo could feel the weight of that mistake. Spotlights illuminated his paintings, guests sipped wine, and murmured in appreciation. And his name was printed in elegant script on the event program. It should have been career-changing moment. Instead, Lucas was here, not just attending, but hosting. Theo stared, his brain scrambling to make sense of it. Lucas was a photographer. That was all he was supposed to be. A photographer with an irritating smirk and too many opinions. Not this. Not someone who could casually throw together an entire art exhibition like it was nothing. Theo's stomach sank as he watched Lucas move through the crowd, effortlessly charming, perfectly at ease, which, of course, he would be. Because Lucas wasn't just some critic or collector. He was rich, a businessman, and, apparently, the one pulling all the strings. Really, Theo should have known better than to step into a gallery without expecting disaster. He spent the entire evening dodging Lucas. But avoiding Lucas, that was never going to work. I didn't take you for the sulking type, Lucas murmured, appearing at his side like some kind of well-dressed specter. Theo clenched his jaw. I'm not sulking. Lucas sipped his wine, gaze flicking to one of Theo's paintings. Ah, of course. Just brooding artistically. Theo turned to glare at him. Do you have a point, or is this just your idea of fun? Lucas smiled. Slow and deliberate. Theo exhaled sharply. Unbelievable. Lucas leaned in slightly, voice dipping into something quieter. Tell me something, Theo. Are you actually mad at me? Or just mad at yourself? Theo tensed. Excuse me. Lucas gestured vaguely around them. You've been stewing all night. But let's be real, you aren't upset because I overheard your little confession. His gaze sharpened. You're upset because Aiden didn't say what you wanted him to say. Theo felt like he had been punched. He opened his mouth, then closed it, then opened it again, only to find no words that wouldn't expose how deeply that cut. Lucas's smirk faltered, just slightly. He looked almost regretful, but only for a second. Did I hit a nerve? Theo let out a humorless laugh. Oh, we're hitting nerves now. Great. Then let's talk about you. Lucas raised a brow. Theo gestured vaguely at him. You waltz in, acting like nothing affects you. Like you're untouchable. But it's all just smoke and mirrors, isn't it? His voice rose. Because God forbid someone actually get close enough to realize you're just as pathetic as the rest of us. Lucas's expression didn't change, but the light in his eyes did. For the first time, Theo saw something raw beneath the surface. Then, just as quickly, Lucas snapped his mask back into place. He smiled, but this time, it didn't reach his eyes. Well, he said smoothly, swirling his wine. That was dramatic. Theo exhaled, exhaustion sinking in. Lucas glanced at him, something unreadable in his gaze. We're more alike than you think, you know, Theo wanted to argue, but the worst part? He wasn't sure he could. Theo had barely recovered from his latest encounter with Lucas when Aiden invited him to the lake house. The weekend getaway had seemed like a good idea, until he realized he would be trapped in a lake house with Lucas and Aiden, and no escape route. Lucas, of course, was thriving. He had effortlessly charmed their mutual friends, and was currently leaning against the kitchen counter, sipping coffee like he was in a photo shoot. Aiden, meanwhile, was barefoot on the porch, stretching like some kind of golden retriever in human form. Theo, seated at the dining table, shoved a spoonful of cereal into his mouth and debated swimming home. So, Lucas said, far too casually, has Aiden given you that romantic heartfelt answer yet? Or are we still pretending you're not in love with him? Theo choked on his cereal. Aiden peeked in from the porch. You good? Theo waved him off, coughing violently. Lucas, the absolute menace, just smiled. Theo recovered, enough to glare at him. You're insufferable, Lucas hummed. And yet, you keep talking to me. Theo might have thrown his spoon at him if Aiden hadn't wandered inside, blissfully oblivious. Man, this trip is exactly what I needed, he sighed, flopping into the seat next to Theo. No drama, just good vibes. Theo stared at him. Are you serious? Lucas snorted. Aiden blinked between them. What? Theo clenched his jaw. Aiden! You do realize that Lucas and I have been at each other's throats for weeks because of you, right? Aiden blinked. Yeah? He shifted uncomfortably. But I thought, after the exhibition, you two were, like, figuring it out. Lucas let out a low chuckle, shaking his head. Oh, this is fantastic. Theo pinched the bridge of his nose. Aiden. He inhaled slowly, forcing his voice to stay even. You have to make a choice. Aiden frowned, like the thought had never even occurred to him. A choice? Lucas leaned in. Slightly, his voice smooth but laced with something sharper. Between me and Theo, because this? He gestured lazily between them. It's exhausting. Aiden opened his mouth, then hesitated. For the first time, real uncertainty flickered across his face. Theo's stomach dropped. Lucas, watching closely, smirked. Ah, there it is. Aiden exhaled sharply, raking a hand through his hair. I need space to think. Theo's chest tightened. Across from him, Lucas, despite the smirk, looked just as tense. Without another word, Aiden stood abruptly. I'm gonna go for a swim. He didn't wait for a response before heading for the door. Silence settled between Theo and Lucas. Finally, Lucas let out a slow breath, tipping his head back. That went well. Theo groaned, sinking into his seat. Theo should have been thinking about Aiden. Instead, he was on the dock, sitting shoulder to shoulder with Lucas, watching the moonlight ripple over the lake. This weekend's a disaster, Theo muttered. Lucas smirked. I don't know. Watching you nearly self-combust at breakfast was pretty entertaining. Theo sighed, kicking at the wooden planks. Aiden's avoiding us, Lucas hummed. Noticed that, did you? Theo frowned. You're saying he's the problem? Lucas arched a brow. I'm saying Aiden loves being loved. But choosing, that's harder. He tilted his head slightly. And you? You'd let him keep you on hold forever, wouldn't you? Theo bristled. That's not. He stopped. Because wasn't it? Aiden had been distant all day, wrapped up in easy conversations with others, laughing at inside jokes Theo wasn't part of. Whenever Theo tried to talk, Aiden would flash that effortless smile and change the subject. And now, Theo was here, with Lucas. And for the first time in weeks, he didn't feel like he was waiting for something. A thought struck him sharp and sudden. He turned to Lucas. "Why aren't you more upset?" Lucas blinked, amused. "Come again." Theo shifted, searching his expression. Aiden hesitated. "He's stringing us both along, and you." He shook his head. "You don't seem to care." Lucas exhaled, swirling the wine in his glass. "Oh, I cared." His voice was lighter than his expression. "But caring is exhausting. So I make choices." He shot Theo a sidelong glance. "Like you, for instance?" Theo narrowed his eyes. "What's that supposed to mean?" Lucas stretched out his legs, his voice slow, deliberate. "I could've let you spiral. Let you sit in that misery waiting for Aiden to throw you breadcrumbs. But I didn't." Theo swallowed. "Why?" Lucas smirked, but instead of answering, he suddenly looked far too pleased with himself. "Because, dear Theo," he said, "once upon a time I was you." Theo stared. "That's horrifying." Lucas placed a dramatic hand over his chest. "I know. Imagine a younger me, bright-eyed, hopeful, tragically earnest." Theo squinted. "I can't. I actually can't." "Oh, but it gets worse." Lucas turned, eyes glinting with mischief. "I was an absolute disaster. A lovesick poet trapped in a businessman's body. If I were an animal, I'd have been a golden retriever that read too much philosophy and waited by the door for someone who was never coming home." Theo choked. "What the hell?" Lucas sighed, shaking his head. "Pathetic, wasn't it? But one day, I had an epiphany." Theo raised a brow. "Oh, this should be good." Lucas leaned in, voice dropping to a mock-serious whisper. "I realized that some people aren't doors you wait by. They're revolving doors. You can run in circles forever, and they'll let you, but they'll never actually open." Theo blinked. "That's weirdly profound." Lucas grinned. "It's also an excuse to call you a golden retriever, which is deeply satisfying." Theo groaned. "I hate you." Lucas nudged his knee. "And yet." Theo turned to glare at him, only to realize how close they were. Lucas's gaze flicked to his lips, then back up. A slow knowing smirk curled at the edge of his mouth. "Go on," he murmured. "Tell me I'm wrong." Theo should have. Instead, he kissed him. It wasn't planned, wasn't careful, just instinct and frustration and something unnamed bubbling to the surface. Lucas exhaled against his mouth, fingers curling into Theo's shirt, dragging him closer. And God help him, Theo let him. When they finally pulled apart, Theo's heart was hammering. Lucas, still too close, grinned. "Well," Theo swallowed hard. "Shut up." Lucas chuckled, brushing a thumb over his jaw before whispering, "Bed?" And for the first time in a long time, Theo wasn't thinking about Aiden at all. Theo was still trying to process the events of last night when Lucas slid a coffee mug into his hands. "Drink," Lucas said, entirely too pleased with himself. "You'll need the energy." Theo shot him a glare, cheeks heating. He hated how sore he felt, how his body still hummed with the memory of hands that had no business being as good as they were. He sank onto one of the kitchen stools, gripping the mug like it could ground him. Lucas, meanwhile, looked infuriatingly well-rested. Smug, even. He stretched lazily, his shirt riding up just enough to reveal the marks Theo definitely hadn't meant to leave. Theo groaned. "You're insufferable." Lucas smirked. "And yet, you seemed pretty fond of me last night." Theo was still groggy, fingers curled around a too-hot mug of coffee, when Aiden walked in. It took Aiden precisely 3 steps before he stopped dead in his tracks. His eyes swept over the scene. Theo, still wearing Lucas' shirt, hair a mess. And Lucas, leaning against the counter, looking infuriatingly pleased with himself. Aiden's grip tightened on the back of a chair. Theo knew the moment it clicked. Aiden's breath hitched, his expression flickering. Shock, confusion, something raw lurking beneath. Lucas took a slow sip of coffee, "Mornin'." Aiden didn't respond, his gaze locked onto Theo. "Tell me this isn't what it looks like." Theo's stomach twisted. "It is." Aiden swallowed, eyes darting between them. He forced out a short laugh, but it was brittle. "That's funny because I could have sworn that yesterday you—" He shook his head. "What the hell, Theo?" Theo exhaled. "I didn't plan this." Lucas hummed. "Neither did I, but, you know," he smirked. "Things happen." Aiden's nostrils flared. "Could you not?" Lucas raised an eyebrow. "Not what?" "Tell the truth." Theo shot Lucas a look, but the damage was already done. Aiden's hands curled into fists. "You hated him, Aiden." Accused. Theo flinched. "I thought I did." Lucas sighed, far too relaxed for someone actively making things worse. "Turns out, hate and whatever this is aren't that far apart." Theo groaned. "Lucas." But Aiden wasn't listening anymore. His expression had shifted into something unreadable. "I just don't get it." His voice was quieter now, rough around the edges. "How do you go from wanting me to—" He gestured vaguely toward Lucas, like the thought alone was impossible to process. Theo's stomach churned. "I waited for you, Aiden. I waited and you—" He swallowed. "You never chose." Aiden flinched. But Theo wasn't done. "I thought maybe if I was patient, if I gave you time, you'd finally—" He let out a sharp breath. "But you never did. And I just—" His voice caught. "I couldn't keep waiting." Aiden's jaw clenched. "I wanted to choose." Lucas let out a low chuckle, shaking his head. "No, you didn't." Lucas tilted his head, watching Aiden like he was a puzzle he had already solved. "You didn't want to choose. You wanted to keep us both wanting you." Aiden's throat bobbed. Lucas took another lazy sip of coffee. "You liked the attention, Aiden, the safety of knowing we were there. But now," he smirked, "now, you have to watch us want each other instead." Aiden's expression darkened. Theo barely had time to react before Aiden let out a humorless laugh, running a hand through his hair. "You know what's funny?" His voice was edged with something sharp, something dangerously close to bitterness. "I thought if I lost Theo it'd be to someone who wasn't you." That threw Lucas off balance for a split second, just a flicker. Then he recovered, smirking again. "Jealous?" Aiden scoffed. "No, but it was unconvincing." Theo's pulse pounded. He had expected Aiden to be hurt, maybe even mad. But this, the tension crackling in the air, the way Aiden couldn't even look at Lucas without his shoulders going tight. Oh no. It seemed Lucas knew, too. Because he wasn't smirking anymore. His expression was unreadable, guarded. Aiden's laugh came softer this time, like he was putting the pieces together in real time. "God. This is so—" Theo exhaled. "Aiden." But Aiden was already shaking his head, stepping back. "I need to get out of here." Theo watched helplessly as Aiden turned and walked out, the door slamming shut behind him. Lucas let out a slow breath. Setting his coffee down. "Well," Theo groaned, burying his face in his hands. "That was a disaster." Lucas nudged him with a foot. "Not entirely." Theo lifted his head just enough to glare. "How, exactly, was that not a disaster?" Lucas smirked, leaning in. "Well, for one," his voice dipped. "You did pick me." Theo's stomach flipped. He cursed. "I hate you." Lucas grinned. "No, you don't." They bickered some more. And not even 10 minutes later, Aiden stormed back into the kitchen. Aiden hadn't meant to come back. He had stormed out of the kitchen, out onto the dock, with every intention of getting the hell away from both of them. Away from the weight in his chest, the tightness in his throat. But the lake, usually calming, felt suffocating tonight. The moonlight shimmered on the water, the reflection rippling, restless, just like him. And before he even realized it, his feet had carried him right back to the doorway of Lucas Dam Lake House. Now, standing in the threshold of the open kitchen, Aiden felt like an intruder in a space that no longer belonged to him. Lucas and Theo turned toward him, caught mid-banter. The warm glow from the old hanging light above the kitchen island cast long shadows against the wooden walls, making the space feel smaller, more intimate. Aiden barely looked at Theo. His attention snapped to Lucas, who leaned against the counter like he hadn't just blown Aiden's world apart. Aiden's voice was razor-sharp. "You're so smug." Lucas tilted his head. "Thank you." Aiden's hands curled into fists. "That wasn't a compliment." Lucas shrugged, completely unbothered. "Still taking it as one?" Aiden laughed. Short, humorless. "Wow. You must be thrilled, huh? You finally got one over on me." Lucas' smirk flickered. "One over on you?" Aiden stepped further inside, the floor creaking beneath his weight. "Oh, don't act like this isn't exactly what you wanted." His voice dripped with accusation. "You never even liked Theo, but now suddenly you're all over him." Theo made a noise of protest. "Excuse me." Lucas's expression darkened, his usual easy arrogance sharpening into something dangerous. "You think this is about you?" He let out a low laugh. "Newsflash, Aiden, not everything revolves around you." Aiden's jaw tightened. "You can cut the act. You enjoyed taking him from me." Lucas took a step forward, closing the distance between them. The tension between them crackled like the summer storms that sometimes rolled across the lake. "And what, exactly, did I take?" His voice was quiet, mocking. "Because as far as I can tell, you never had him." Aiden's breath hitched. "You want to be mad at someone? Be mad at yourself?" His voice dropped lower, crueler. "You strung him along for years, waiting until the second he moved on to suddenly care." "I did care. Then you should have known it." The words hit like a punch to the gut. Aiden had no response, because the worst part, the part he wanted to rip out of himself, was that Lucas was right. Theo finally cut in, stepping between them with a forcefulness Aiden had never seen from him. "Enough. Both of you." Lucas took a step back, but his gaze stayed locked onto Aiden, waiting for another excuse to rip into him. Aiden exhaled sharply, dragging a hand through his hair. The weight of the old house pressed down on him, the exposed wooden beams, the faint scent of pine and lake water, the distant creak of a boat tied to the dock outside. I don't get it." His voice cracked slightly. "You hated each other." He turned to Theo now, desperate for something that made sense. Theo hesitated, and for the first time since this conversation started, his expression softened. Not defensive, not angry, just tired. "It wasn't about you, Aiden." His voice was steady, but the words still hit like a slap. "It just happened." Aiden's stomach twisted. "And that's it? That's all I get?" Lucas rolled his eyes. "Jesus, do you hear yourself?" Theo shot him another look, then turned back to Aiden. "What do you want me to say?" Aiden shook his head. "I don't know," he exhaled, feeling unsteady. Aiden looked at Theo, at the way he was standing next to Lucas now, unconsciously positioned closer to him, and something about it finally sank in. Lucas wasn't just a complication. Lucas wasn't just an obstacle. Lucas was the ending. Aiden felt something inside him splinter. He let out a sharp breath, shaking his head as he stepped back toward the door. The night air was thick with the scent of the lake, the hum of crickets filling the silence between them. "I can't do this right now." Theo hesitated, like he might say something else, but he didn't. And Aiden didn't wait for him to. He turned and walked out, the screen door slamming shut behind him. For the first time, he wasn't sure if he'd ever walk back in. 2 weeks after the lake house, Aiden found himself on a blind date. He didn't want to be here. The cafe was too dimly lit, the music too soft, and the guy sitting across from him, Mateo, Marcus, was easily the hottest man Aiden had ever been set up with. Tall, golden-skinned, biceps stretching the sleeves of his shirt. He looked like he had walked off a fitness magazine cover. The catch? He was dumb as a rock. "I just think, like, the moon landing was cool or whatever," Mateo or Marcus said, swirling his wine. "But have you ever really thought about space? Like really thought about it?" Aiden blinked. "I guess." Because his date continued, leaning forward conspiratorially. What if the reason aliens don't visit us is because they already have and were, super unimpressed? Aiden took a long sip of his drink. Nina was so dead for this, he tried for a moment to engage, to be present, but it was hard to focus. When his thoughts kept circling back to the last time he'd sat across from someone at a table, bathed in warm light, low conversation humming between them, Theo, with his careful way of speaking, his hands expressive when he was passionate about something. The way he'd always been there, in the background of Aiden's life, waiting, until he wasn't. Aiden exhaled, pressing his thumb against the condensation on his glass. He should be moving on. He was moving on. So why did it feel like he was waiting for a way out? Mateo, or Marcus, was still talking. Something about Elon Musk, or maybe Atlantis. Aiden nodded absently, glancing toward the entrance. If he left now, would it be rude? And then his stomach dropped, because the door had just opened, and Lucas and Theo had walked in. It was an ordinary entrance. No dramatic hand-holding, no grand romantic display. But Aiden felt it. The shift in the air. Theo was scanning the room, adjusting his sleeves, his nervous tick, while Lucas murmured something close to his ear, smirking. Theo rolled his eyes, but his lips twitched, like he was fighting a smile. Aiden gripped his drink tighter. It was their first official date, he could tell. From the way Lucas held the door open with unnecessary flourish, the way Theo huffed but still nudged him playfully, the way Lucas looked at Theo like he had already won, Aiden felt something crack inside his chest. Dude? Mateo or Marcus waved a hand in front of his face. You okay? You kinda zoned out. For the first time, Aiden felt like a guest at a story that had already moved on without him. Lucas had never been good at patience. He wasn't wired for waiting. If he wanted something, he took it. And right now, he wanted Theo's attention. The problem? Theo was being weird. Not distant, not cold, just quiet. Lucas wasn't used to that. Theo was usually full of sharp remarks and exasperated sighs, rolling his eyes at Lucas' antics. But tonight, as they walked down the dimly lit street toward Nina's cafe, Theo was different. His hands were shoved in his pockets, his shoulders slightly hunched. Most fascinating of all, he kept sneaking glances at Lucas. When he thought he wasn't looking, Lucas smirked. Oh, this was interesting. He slowed his pace, letting their arms brush. Theo stiffened. Lucas nearly laughed out loud. He was shy, over him. The realization sent a ridiculous thrill through him. He had seen Theo annoyed, frustrated, teasing, even vulnerable. But this hesitant, quiet, almost bashful Theo, it was new. It was addicting. He couldn't resist pushing a little. Lucas leaned in, dropping his voice to a murmur. You're awfully quiet, mon coeur. Theo's ears turned pink. I'm just thinking. Lucas grinned. About? Theo cleared his throat. Nothing. Oh, this was too good. Nothing. Lucas reached over and caught Theo's wrist, tugging him to a stop under the glow of a street lamp. You sure about that? Theo swallowed hard, eyes darting to Lucas' mouth before he quickly looked away. Oh, he was adorable. Lucas lifted Theo's hand to his lips, pressing a slow, deliberate kiss to his knuckles. You can tell me, he murmured against his skin. I won't tease. Theo made a strangled noise that absolutely delighted him. You're literally teasing me right now. Lucas laughed, releasing his hand but letting his fingers linger. Fine. Theo muttered something under his breath, but the corners of his mouth twitched, and Lucas counted that as a win. They continued toward Nina's cafe, and when they stepped inside, Lucas immediately took in the warm glow of the hanging lights, the soft hum of conversation, the rich scent of coffee. But what really caught his attention was the sight of Aiden sitting at a corner table, head in hands, looking absolutely miserable. Lucas arched a brow. Well, what do we have here? Theo followed his gaze, frowning. Oh. Lucas tilted his head, studying the scene. Oh, no. Across from Aiden sat a guy, undeniably attractive, but the moment he opened his mouth, Lucas could hear the complete lack of intelligence from across the room. Theo looked at an amused Nina before he sighed. Nina set him up on a date. Lucas smirked. This is going to be fun. Theo groaned. But Lucas was already moving, a plan forming in his mind. Because yes, Aiden had been a mess. Yes, Lucas had been pissed at him, but Theo had been sad about losing him, and Lucas couldn't stand that. So really, this was for Theo, not for Aiden. Definitely not. Lucas slid into the booth beside Aiden like he belonged there, draping an arm over his shoulders. Mon cher, he purred. I see Nina's trying to ruin your life. Aiden startled, then groaned when he saw who it was. Oh, for the love of. Theo, reluctantly following, looked like he wanted to disappear. The date, blissfully unaware of the social catastrophe unfolding, beamed. Oh, are you friends of Aiden's? Lucas smiled. I'd say more like old lovers. Theo choked. Aiden's soul visibly left his body. The date's eyes widened. Wait, really? Lucas patted Aiden's shoulder. No, but wouldn't that be scandalous? Theo buried his face in his hands. I hate you. Lucas grinned, but his gaze flickered to Aiden, taking in the way his shoulders were tense, the way he kept glancing at Theo like he wanted to say something. Time to fix this mess. Lucas clapped his hands together. All right, puppies. Let's clear the air. He leaned in, voice lower, amused. And maybe save Aiden from his own personal hell while we're at it. Aiden groaned. I will literally murder you. Lucas smirked. Promises, promises. Hey buddy, Lucas said, clapping Aiden's blind date on the shoulder as he took the empty seat across from them. Quick question. Are you really into Aiden, or did Nina just bribe you with free coffee? The guy, jawline so sharp it could cut glass, but with the vaguely confused expression of a golden retriever, blinked. Lucas nodded as if that confirmed everything. Right, here's the thing. Aiden's got some unresolved emotional turmoil, and you? You deserve someone who isn't mentally monologuing about his ex's mid-date. Aiden choked on his drink. Lucas, I swear to. But Lucas was already ushering the guy up. Go forth, be beautiful. Find someone who actually appreciates your symmetrical face. First drinks on me. The guy hesitated, glanced at Aiden, who looked like he was about to commit a felony, and then grabbed his coat. Good luck with that. And with that, he was gone. Lucas dusted his hands off. There, now we can all focus on what really matters, our messy, unresolved tension. Aiden slammed his cup down. You're the worst. Lucas leaned back, looking far too pleased with himself. So, let's talk. Theo, who had been quiet until now, sighed, rubbing his temples. Lucas, maybe? No, he wants to talk. Aiden snapped. Fine, let's talk. He leaned in, voice low, eyes sharp. You like swooping in and fixing things, don't you? Lucas tilted his head unimpressed. Only when they're broken. Aiden scoffed. Yeah? And what about you, huh? You act like you don't care, but you do. You always have. Lucas's smirk twitched, but he didn't respond. Aiden clenched his jaw. You want honesty? Fine. I don't hate that Theo picked you. His voice dipped, raw and uncertain. I hate that I never even gave him the chance to pick me. Theo inhaled sharply. The cafe noise faded into the background. Aiden exhaled roughly, running a hand through his hair. I was scared, okay? I thought if I waited, if I didn't push, maybe things would just work out. And then suddenly, I was watching them not work out. His voice wavered. I didn't realize how much I wanted him until I wasn't an option anymore. Lucas studied him, unreadable for once. Then he leaned back, crossing his arms. There, was that so hard? Aiden shot him a look. I still want to fight you. Lucas grinned. I'd win. Theo groaned, and then, enough both of you. The weight in Theo's voice made them both snap their heads toward him. Theo, usually so soft-spoken, looked furious. Arms crossed, jaw set, eyes burning. Do you two hear yourselves? You're both acting like idiots. Aiden blinked. Lucas, oddly, looked impressed. Theo jabbed a finger at both of them. Lucas, stop being an instigating little gremlin. Aiden, stop sulking. If you don't fix this, I will make it my life's mission to annoy you both forever. Aiden stared. Then, to everyone's shock, he laughed. Tired, exasperated, but real. Lucas smirked. Now that's a threat. Aiden shook his head, looking at Theo, then Lucas. Fine, whatever. I don't want to fight anymore. He exhaled. I'm sorry, Theo. Theo's expression softened. I know. Aiden hesitated, then looked at Lucas. And you? Lucas raised a brow. Aiden sighed. You're still the worst. Lucas grinned. I accept your surrender. Theo groaned. But when Lucas grabbed his hand under the table, squeezing lightly, Theo didn't let go. Maybe, just maybe, things could be okay again. Lucas had been patient, painfully, maddeningly patient. He had let Theo set the pace, indulging only in lingering touches, the teasing press of lips, and stolen moments that left him aching for more. He had played the game well, let Theo adjust, let him get comfortable with what this was between them. Tonight, patience was overrated. Theo was standing in his bedroom, sweater slipping off one shoulder, looking at him with something quiet but certain in his eyes. No hesitation, no second-guessing, just want. Lucas stepped forward, his smirk sharpening. You keep looking at me like that, baby, and I'm gonna think you want something. Theo exhaled, barely a hitch, but Lucas caught it. He tilted his head, watching the way Theo's fingers clenched at his sides. Say it, Lucas murmured, voice low. Tell me what you want. Theo hesitated, just for a second. Then, in a move that sent heat straight through Lucas's spine, he grabbed the front of Lucas's shirt and pulled. I want you. Voice just a little rough. Lucas let out a slow, dark chuckle. Theo gasped into his mouth, hands sliding into Lucas's hair, but Lucas didn't let him take control. He caught Theo's wrists, twisting them behind his back, pressing their bodies flush. Theo made a sound, something between a startled breath and a soft moan. Lucas grinned against his lips. Thought you liked it when I took charge. Theo turned red. I never said that, Lucas ticked, pressing a teasing kiss to the corner of Theo's mouth. You didn't have to. He nudged Theo back, walking him until his knees hit the bed. Then, with practiced ease, he pushed him down, following him, bracing himself above him. Theo stared up at him. Lips parted, breath unsteady. Lucas let his fingers ghost down Theo's arm, slow, deliberate. You trust me? Theo swallowed. Yeah. Lucas leaned in, voice a whisper against his lips. Then let me ruin you. Theo shivered. You talk too much. Lucas grinned. Oh, baby, he murmured, pressing Theo further into the mattress. You love it. Lucas didn't waste time. He kissed Theo with the kind of hunger that had been building for weeks, deep, claiming, his hands already moving, already mapping. He didn't just touch, he took, fingers trailing down Theo's sides, pressing into the dips of his waist, dragging him closer, making sure Theo felt everything. Theo gasped as Lucas nipped at his jaw, down the column of his throat, sucking bruises he had no intention of apologizing for. Theo would wear him tomorrow, and Lucas liked the thought more than he should. You drive me insane, Lucas murmured against his skin, teeth scraping lightly before his tongue soothed over the spot. Theo trembled beneath him, fingers tightening in Lucas' shirt. He was so beautiful. Lucas sat back, gaze raking over Theo. The messy hair, the flushed cheeks, the way his chest rose and fell unsteadily. He was a masterpiece, and Lucas intended to wreck him. With slow, deliberate intent, Lucas pinned Theo's wrists above his head, lowering himself again, their bodies pressing together in a way that made Theo arch against him. You like this? Lucas breathed, rolling his hips just enough to tease. Theo's breath hitched. Lucas smirked. That's not a no. Theo glared at him, but Lucas could feel the way his pulse raced beneath his fingers, the way he pressed up into every touch. Then Theo, finally, gave in, tilting his head up, kissing Lucas like he meant it, like he was done pretending he didn't want. That was all the permission Lucas needed. He made good on his promise, taking Theo apart piece by piece, coaxing out gasps and moans and murmured curses, marking every inch of him with lips. Teeth clung to him, letting himself be wanted, letting Lucas take. It was dizzying, losing themselves to each other, tangled in sheets and heated whispers, the room filled with warmth, and need, and something heavier, something neither of them had to say out loud. And when it was over, when Theo was spent and pliant in his arms, Lucas pulled him in, tucking Theo against his chest, pressing a lazy kiss into his hair. Lucas huffed a laugh. You are a koala, a needy one. Theo muttered, something incoherent but nuzzled closer, his breath warm against Lucas's skin. Lucas exhaled, his fingers absently tracing circles against Theo's back. He had never been the type to stay, never been the type to let someone keep him. But as Theo sighed softly in sleep, wrapped up in him like he belonged there, Lucas thought maybe, just maybe, he had finally found someone worth staying for.